Hi, and welcome to another episode of Startup Stories, where I interview the best and brightest startup founders and experts, so you can be ahead of the curve with your own startup venture. This episode brings us together with Alan Cabello from Adjoint, a startup that empowers businesses in the financial industry to achieve new levels of efficiency and control by delivering blockchain technology built specifically for their needs. Having Alan on and talk about hot technological topics like blockchain and APIs in layman's terms was super insightful and helped me better understand these important technologies that are gaining more and more attention these days. Alan also shared how he perceived the difference between being a founder and being a manager at a startup, how he acquires businesses as customers, and more. I'm super excited to share this conversation with all of you today. Enjoy! All right, welcome to the podcast, Alan.
Thank you.
Thanks
very
so much for taking the time. We have it's a bit of special situations as we talked before, but I'm very excited to see that special angle on it's kind of expanding a startup in a new market.
Mm-hmm.
So you're the regional general manager of Adjoint here in Switzerland.
Yes.
And you just started in October, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and also what does Adjoint do for someone who's not specialized in blockchain like me? Because I read through the website, I got it eventually because I'm not that smart. But what do you do?
Sure. So first off, my name is Alan Cabello. I'm an engineer. I always start out with that, so you can trust me.
Is that the image you
trust me? I'm an engineer. I studied engineering. Moved on to an MBA. Did a PhD in strategy innovation. I've been working around innovation for the last 10 years or so. Last role before Adjoint was as an innovation manager at a very large insurance company. And I was Adjoint's client, actually.
Right.
So that's how I got to know Adjoint. Within my role, I hired a couple of different companies to develop stuff for me there. And I really, really liked working with Adjoint. They were small, super agile, but the founders were very senior and very knowledgeable about the business, which I believe is the three pillars for success. Cool technology, good stuff. Yeah. You actually know what you're doing. Great. Understanding where it is you're playing. Yeah. You see a lot of people like, oh, we're going to revolutionize insurance. It's like, do you have anybody in insurance works? Well, no, but we all buy insurance. And I'm like, that's not necessarily the same thing for banking or for any industry. I think it's and number 3. In this specific case, these guys knew how to do enterprise-grade implementations. Yeah. And I think that's a huge challenge for startups, fintechs nowadays. Yeah. They think like, yes, I can sell this to, I don't know, whoever magical client you would like to acquire. Have you any clue what it is to deal with an enterprise-level IT system? That is an animal that is... They don't teach you how to do that at ETH.
Yeah, so because the technology is so old that they use, or the systems are so complex, or what does that mean?
Complex systems, old complex technology, complex architectures and implementations at the time, regulatory, legal requirements
that are super high.
So I remember working with another small company, and I asked these guys, fantastic engineers, really, really cool engineers, great at what they were doing, but the moment I brought up ISO regulations, they looked at me like, well, what's that? I was like, well, I don't know either. I'm just the innovation. But you guys are selling me this IT stuff. Yeah. And that's
it's important.
That's important. Yeah. So if you're hoping to sell to large companies, you need to know how to speak their language and play in that field. Yeah. So it's like coming with a baseball bat to a basketball court. What do I do with this here? Although you might do great stuff with it, it's just not going to work out. Yeah. So that's how I ended up working with Adjoint. Small companies, founded in 2016, extremely successful from the get-go, growing very, I would say, organically. And when I was looking to move on, new challenges, they asked me if I would set up the Swiss part of the business and look out for the, let's say, continental Europe market.
Yeah. And what do they do?
That's a good question.
What do you do?
And what do I do? So in very, very simple terms, we try to simplify business processes within the financial services industry. That sounds too simple. But if you think of how banks or any financial service business got computerized in the, let's say, 80s, 90s, they essentially took what they were doing and they put it on a computer.
Yeah.
They never fiddled with the process itself.
Yeah.
So when traders were at the trading floor, waiting papers around, and then giving it to someone, and that someone sending it to someone else, they took that, and then it's like, okay, now you take the paper and you put it into this computer, and then you send it to, and then it's like, okay, instead of doing the, so we started basically computerizing all these different processes, because it was easier than actually digitalizing. Now, what do I mean with digitalizing? Well, you look at the new tools you have, and like, oh, what's a better way of doing what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And doing that requires some change management, requires some, tearing down some kingdoms and setting up new ones. So, let's say now we're at the point where, given a variety of social, economic, and technology factors, these companies are being forced to rethink these core business processes they have.
Yeah.
So what do? We build on 3 pillars, 3 different. I like 3. As you can see.
3 is a nice. It's always a nice number to have.
So number 1, and I think for us the most important, is APIs. It's open banking. What we're doing today would have not been possible 3 years ago.
What's an API for someone who just came out of psychology master's degree?
An API is basically the connectivity you have with another IT system. So the connectivity between 2 IT systems. Now I'll give you a very, very simple example. You have, I want to know if you paid me the 6 francs you owe me for this coffee. Right. We're in Zurich, guys. Sorry. Coffee's expensive. So I want to know if Daniel paid me that money, and Daniel says, hey, yes, I sent you that money. So I call up my bank, pick up the phone, or send them an email and say, hey, I want to know if I actually got that money.
Yeah.
However mechanism you use. But so what the bank would do would send me an envelope with my statement and, that information. When that envelope arrives home, I open the envelope, I take out several pieces of paper, and there I will have a letterhead and this fancy format, the legal disclaimers on the bottom, and then all the lines of transactions that I've had, because they're not going to just send me that payment, they're going to send me everything.
Yeah.
And then on page 3, somewhere in the middle, I'll find, hey, 6 francs from Daniel. So then I'll just go to WhatsApp and I'll say, hey, I got your 6 francs.
Yeah.
So that's essentially how traditional corporate IT systems work. Sending system has a certain information. They will package it up in the old formats that are very heavy, which think about the piece of paper and the letterhead and the envelope, and then they'll send it to you through a very, very heavy type of, let's say, using a lot of bandwidth. In this case, mail. Which is necessary in order to transport that heavy piece of information. It'll arrive at the receiving end of IT system, and that IT system will unbundle that, take out all the formatting, take out the letterhead, take out the envelope, look for that one piece of information, and then put it into their own corporate format, which is probably a PowerPoint for the CEO. Okay? In our case, the corporate format that we're looking at was WhatsApp. Me telling you, yes, I got the 6 francs. A little thumbs up, right? So that's basically how IT systems traditionally connect to each other, and they have for 10, 15 years. What IPAs do that
later.
That's later. APIs do now is they will basically allow our two systems to connect in a way that whenever I need that granular piece of information of those 6 francs by Daniel, I can, through my system, I can go into their system, draw that one piece of data, and bring it over just as that piece of information. 6 francs, Daniel, date, time, very, very compact. Transport that in that very compact, easy way, and automatically put it in the format that I need it in. So if you have this image, it's me WhatsApping the bank. Did Daniel pay? Yes, at this time. And that I can forward it to you. That would be the equivalent of an API within our, day-to-day business.
Yes.
In the format that we use, in the way that we use it, and that we need it. So if you have these types of connectivities, which again was not possible 3 years ago because there are very few banks actually allowed you to do this, and this is regulatory, by the way. EU regulation is forcing banks to do this. This allows us to have a granular level of data from financial transactions that were never before possible. To the penny. Every single line of payment before we would bulk stuff. So that's pillar number 1.
Yes.
Pillar number 2 is what we call distributed ledger technology, the magical blockchain word.
Yes.
For those of you out there that have no clue what this means, think about it as a Google Sheets. Google Docs, Google Sheets. We both call it an Excel sheet. You and you browse it, mine, and then we can each write, and we see each other writing, and we have a real-time document that we're working on.
Yes.
That's a distributed ledger. Now, distributed ledger technology as we know it, or blockchain as some people call it, has the additional part that we have an immutable record, a record that cannot be deleted, of who did what, when, where. So if Daniel wrote in cell C3, Alan is great,
then
we will
that's
have that happened. If Alan comes over and makes a change and said Alan is wonderful, there will be a record of Alan made that change to that cell at this time.
So it records any change.
Why is this interesting? Because we have a means to now always have the latest version, the latest draft. And if you're working on a student project, any type of thing, yourselves like, what's the draft version 25?
Version 25.
And in large companies, even in small ones, we have Dropbox, we have Google Docs, but large companies don't for various IT purposes. We're constantly exchanging information, and the question is, what's the latest? What's the final version of this? And make sure that a group of people distributed in different places, in different organizations, different whatever geographies, have the same version. Now, why is that important in financial services? Because you need to know, say, Alan paid Daniel, Daniel paid Alan. The moment that you put paid, I paid here, I have that in the same moment, I have it on my Excel sheet. And the more people we invite to our Excel sheet, we always have, this is the latest version that anybody put in there. You put that together with the API, so then you can see not just what we put, but what reflects on the bank. So that API, that information from the bank starts feeding that ledger. And reconciling, which is basically matching those two numbers in real time. That helps us do a lot of very interesting stuff. And number 3 is smart contracts. Now, smart contracts are interesting because they're neither smart nor are they really contracts.
Compared to dumb contracts.
Think about it. My first job was at ABB designing control systems for power plants. And I would go around an old power plant that was analog, where people would, manually open gates and stuff like that. And I would go around and I'd make notes. Pressure here has to be this value before you open something, and flow of water comes through, and all these different things. I was designing the logic that went behind the operations of what makes a power plant work based on the values of what they had there. We spent the entire 80s and 90s automating factories and industry. We hadn't done that in business because we didn't have the digital inputs. Everything was still done in paper.
Yeah.
And then when we had the internet, we weren't ever really sure if the version of the document we were working on was the final one. So trusting that document and that was the final version of it was too much of a liability.
Yeah.
Think of a legal contract there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now that we have this source of truth, which we can say, hey, it actually works, it actually, everybody agrees,
yeah,
we can start automating things.
Yeah.
So, very, very simple case. Any person who's ever worked in any company will say expense reports.
Yeah. You want to automate that? Please.
And please automate it. And there's been apps that have been doing this for many years. You can take a picture and it automatically extracts the data and all these wonderful things. But at the end of the day, there's still someone who has to look at this and say, okay, does this person have the seniority level to spend X amount of money? What is the bank account of the... Match different pieces of information.
Yeah.
And make a decision, do we pay or do we not pay?
Yeah.
All these little different decision points and matching points, we can start automating.
Yeah.
And businesses, especially financial institutions, are full of processes
that can be automated.
Because we do them every day, every week, every month.
Yeah.
Paying an insurance, you pay the same thing pretty much every year. A few parameters change.
Yeah.
You adapt it slightly to whatever formula you had there. You keep on going. So a smart contract is nothing but a mathematical equation.
Yeah.
Ands, ifs, ors.
If this and
equals that, you do that or that.
Yeah.
So it's very, very, very simple. We have APIs that have given us to, thanks to government basically and regulation pushing for it, pushing banks to do that. Distributed ledger, which has been around for 30-something years.
Yeah.
And these smart contracts, which allow us to automate things.
Yeah.
So we take those three magical ingredients and we just go digging into any company, because any large company has financials.
Yeah.
What I find fascinating is any organization in this world produces something and money flows in the opposite direction.
Yes.
Every organization in this world. The Red Cross produces aid, and then money has to flow into a certain direction.
Somehow, yeah.
Ford makes cars and money, and we've gotten really, really good at optimizing the output of stuff.
Yeah, but the money.
But we're really, really bad at the input of money.
Yeah. I totally see that. It's even small things like, my girlfriend works in a coffee shop, or she's not at the bar, but she has to do the reporting at once a month or once every 2 weeks, and she spends a day, like, taking all the Quittungen, the receipts from the bars, and matching them, and it's a day she spends on that.
And I'm sure there's like 10 different softwares that would actually help her. But in order to get into those softwares, you need to kind of do it's not that easy. Everyone's like, oh, you can use this and you can use that. And then suddenly you have 3 different IT systems. And now think about it in the corporate world. So if in our lives we have Expensify, we have this and we have that, but these things don't talk to each other. So then, at the end of the day, you sit down in front of an Excel sheet.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you come back to Excel and like,
exactly.
I hate you, but I need you.
So that's pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what I find.
I see why you're excited about this, because there's so much potential
for anything, for everywhere.
Yeah. And also there's a lot of people doing manual work right now in that, and I'm sure they're not enjoying. They could be doing better things.
They could be doing more interesting things.
So that's a huge potential as well there. So you're starting, you're attacking the Swiss market now.
As a start, we're really going to DACH. I've been working in the German region, doing some stuff in France and Italy. So I'm going around Switzerland and
knocking
around
on other doors as well.
Switzerland is a great place to go around all these different markets because of the languages, because of the. It's a great starting point for this overall region.
Yeah. What did you do to identify the perfect customer for your value proposition? Was it because you're not starting out totally fresh Adjoint had customers before. Did you just take that and come into the new market and say, those are the customers we're gonna go for because it makes sense, or did you have to adapt your value proposition somehow, or your target customer?
So, I don't think we should ever, I would say should not get to a final product.
Yeah.
Let's say the final value proposition. I think it needs to keep on evolving, no matter what the business is. If you already sit down and like, oh, I made it, this was our value proposition, we're done, you're probably not too far away from the cliff.
You're not going to survive long.
Very long.
Sure.
In terms of what Adjoint has been doing for the last couple of years and that we're now offering in the Swiss market, which is essentially optimizing these financial processes, and we have a specific product that helps do that.
Yeah.
The core of that is the same, and it's these three pillars that I was talking about.
Yeah.
But every API has, let's say, goes to different banks.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of different banks in the world, and not every company works with the same banks. Yeah. Number one. The distributed ledger needs to be adapted to the type of business that you're doing, and if you're selling apples versus you're selling cars, that might look a bit different of what you're putting. A balance sheet is a balance sheet, and that will be the same everywhere. But what parameters do you put in there?
Yeah.
And how do we connect that to your SAP system, to your enterprise resource planning, or that's going to look different. Yeah. And finally, the smart contracts really again depend on the nature of the business.
Yeah.
So yes, an expense report is the same here and in China. Probably maybe not in China, but let's say
I don't know how to look there.
But contracts, for example, for intercompany loans.
Yeah.
Loans between companies. Loan is a loan.
Yeah.
And we have a library of smart contracts. I'm using air quotes here for a loan, for a swap, for like different financial products, which is basically the similar logic, and all you change is the parameters. But how these things get triggered and how they move along the corporate world depends also on where you are.
Yeah.
So there is a level of customization to what we do.
Yeah.
That will always be, let's say, needed. The other interesting part is not every single different business has different level of urgency and certain needs. I just mentioned loans. So for some clients, they do a lot of these loans.
Yeah.
And it's a huge mess, and it's a huge process, and nobody's actually even thought about, as you mentioned, your girlfriend. So nobody ever thought about putting any IT system there.
Yeah.
And they've got nothing. It's like, okay, great, let's do this.
Yeah.
Other people, well, we don't do that many loans.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of FX transactions. We swap currencies a lot.
Yeah.
So what is the use case that you start out with? That requires a lot of exploration and need finding with the customer.
Yeah.
So it's never going to be I'm selling cups and here's a cup. And
it's not a plug and play.
It's not never going to be a plug and play.
It's too complex.
There is a core of it, which is replicable. So we're productizing that.
Yeah.
And there's other things that we're starting to productize, like these modules. Okay, so you have a module for loans. Everybody's going to need the loan thing, fine.
Yeah, so we do that. Yeah.
But there will always be some tailored part to it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really important to be close to your customers.
Yeah.
Of course, when we start going further down the market, maybe doing more SMEs or something like that, okay, well, maybe all shoe shops get the same thing.
Yeah.
And all kebab shops get the same. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
But at this point, at this level of, okay, the 5 biggest insurance companies in the world, they're all doing things slightly different.
You gotta.
So you can't
individualize it.
Yeah, you need to tailor that to their own needs.
Yeah. Talking about your first customers, how do you get your first customers here in Switzerland? I imagine it's different to start a startup from scratch than entering a new market like Adjoint is now. How does that look like?
I mean, I've done business development for quite a while with a bunch of different other things, and it's really just relationships. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And so if you're locked up in your basement developing the magical thing, but nobody's ever seen it. Nobody gave you feedback. Nobody.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Yeah.
You might partner up with someone who's actually going out and about and meeting people. But for us, our first Swiss customers are really based on it's relationships.
Yeah.
And people need to trust you. Again, this is not a plug-and-play solution. And no matter how much we try to sell it, in any business or any service, any tech, you try to sell it as a plug-and-play. But specifically in the B2B market, you need to know people.
How do you build that trust? What do you do to...
Well, that's a...
build, I mean, the goal is build trust as fast as possible, right? But trust is a thing that builds over time. You know, you meet a couple of times. You can add like stuff like references, and we did these projects. And how do you handle
there's
that?
this. I read a book recently. I don't remember the name, but it talked about the trust battery.
Yeah.
Okay. And it said that every professional relationship starts with let's say a 50% trust charge.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. But
I look it up. But so you start off by, okay, if they already let you in the room and they think you're not completely selling air.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a 50% trust battery, and you go there, and then how much how you increase that or go down, that depends on actions.
Yeah.
And here it's really based on actions. Number one is, I always say under promise and over deliver. Never ever, when you're doing this type of business development, go out there promising
the world
and not delivering.
Yeah.
Because you had one shot.
Yeah.
Whoever gives you that shot will expect to at least get what they were told. And if you don't make it to that one person, he or she will never trust you again. And number two, make sure that nobody else
trusts. Yeah.
So I think that that's a very different thing from B2C, because C customers, the retail market is very forgiving.
Yeah, they forget fast.
And there's other options, and then someone else tells them like, "Oh, it was great for me." Like, okay, maybe I should try it again.
Yeah. Maybe that's why I prefer it. I don't know.
It's a more kind of, it's a different type of engagement.
It's very different.
When you're dealing in B2B, you're still dealing with people, but contrary to what it seems, B2B is actually B2B to H, which is a human, and there's the human, and you have a more personal relationship in B2B than you will ever have in B2C.
Yeah, that's true.
And you need to nourish that. You need to keep it. These people need to trust you. Now, if you behave like a used car salesperson, they're not going to trust you. You need to keep up to date, and you need to kind of constantly, smoke signals, I'm here.
Yeah.
We're just following up. How's it going? I always tell my guys, unless you get a reply, I'm not interested, please stop bothering me. Yeah. That's still a green light to, okay, I'll contact you another 3-4 weeks. It depends on how long your sales cycle is. Yeah. Again, there's a lot of studies on this. Usually the sales are done at the 8th, 10th, 12th. Say,
you gotta be
pitch.
persistent.
You need to be persistent.
Yeah. I even read, I don't know, it was Master of Sales, Grant Cardone. I don't know if you read about him.
I've never read a sales book, actually.
Well, he
maybe I should.
I don't know. It was not even a sales book. It was just goal setting. But he said, yeah, even if they say no, keep going. And then he brings some examples of where he kind of got a no to a yes, and the customer is his best customer now, and kind of praising him publicly and everything. But I think it's critical if someone says no.
Well,
still going after him.
There's no more reliable partner than a converted. Again, it's to think about Saint Peter.
That's true.
From the one that was persecuting them to the one that was promoting them.
Yeah,
that's
the best.
That will be your biggest, let's say, ally.
Yeah,
because they thought this was crap. They thought this was never going to work, and they were so sure of it.
Yeah,
and then they saw the light, and they were like, "Oh,
exactly."
and they will argue for you, and they will with the same passion in which they were arguing against you.
Yeah.
They will say, I thought this, and I thought that, and I thought that, because they thought about all the negative things,
Yeah.
and I was wrong.
Yeah.
There's nothing more powerful than someone saying that they were wrong.
It's the best marketer. For you.
Exactly.
Free marketer.
But so far I haven't found any of those. But I'm getting
Yeah,
and there's a lot of unhappy negative people against blockchain, so it shouldn't be that hard for me to find.
There's potential there.
There's potential. You see, J.P. Morgan, say, recently announced this internal token, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what we're selling. We've been doing this for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
But the reason why the media is all over it and it's gotten so much publicity is because the CEO has been quoted before saying, "Oh, Bitcoin is terrible. I never."
Oh, I saw like a meme.
Exactly.
Like 2000, yeah.
And actually, what they're doing to Bitcoin has nothing to do. But it's just the perception of people. So it's so much more powerful because the guy who said that this was only for illegal stuff is now. And he's not, again, it has nothing to do one with the other.
Yeah.
But for people who are not very knowledgeable about it, it feels like, this guy's 180 degrees.
Yeah.
So it's a very powerful marketing message, basically.
Yeah, it is. Oh, he said something bad about Bitcoin?
He said something bad
which
about
is the
Bitcoin.
currency, which is not the.
It has nothing to do with the technology that they're using to do these transactions.
Yeah. Okay. There's one topic that is always very interesting to me is pricing, and I had another interview right before you, was also B2B, and I always wonder, how do you set the price for your products? And you're putting your thumbs up and saying, like, what feels right?
What feels right?
Because I listened to another podcast once. It's a startup that it helps startups price their products right. Software as a service startups, and they really say, I mean, that can break your startup if you price it too low or even too high, whatever. The right pricing is really a competitive advantage. How do you see that, and how do you set a price? I mean,
let's look at. There's a couple of different angles here, aspects here. First of all, again, we're talking B2B in large corporate, so their average IT implementation thing is like 4 million for it takes 5-10 years.
Yeah.
So the prices that they're paying are ridiculous to begin with.
Yes.
That model, from my perspective, has reached the end of its life cycle. Companies are spending hundreds of millions every year on supporting Oracle or IBM servers locked in the basement, which Amazon Web Services is now giving you for $25 a month.
Yeah.
So the way we're doing pricing is extremely, I agree, it's extremely important, but the way we are looking to do pricing is more like Netflix.
Yeah.
And actually, I've told this to board members, in terms of bang for your buck technology per dollar, you're getting more out of your Netflix subscription in terms of technology than you're getting for what IBM is installed in your basement 15 years ago and you're still paying for.
Yeah.
It's just the way that the pricing of old tech companies was built, which is that business model, that pricing model was thought of as machinery.
Yeah.
Again, they took the model from industry.
Yeah.
You buy this huge chunk of machinery, you depreciate it over 10, 15 years, and that's the mindset. And a lot of COOs still have that mindset. I'm doing this tech implementation, and I'm doing it as if I was buying this huge piece of equipment, which is going to sit there and work on my factory line. IT is not like that. But that was the model that these guys knew. That's the model that the market knew, and that's the model that they adapted.
Yeah.
Now, as we go to pay-as-you-go, monthly subscription, again, Netflix puts a lot of money in keeping their tech up to date.
Yeah.
I'm not paying for those up. I am paying for it, but I don't see this like, oh, now if I want to use Netflix 2.0, which I'm sure there's a Netflix 3.0, every month, I have to subscribe to this new thing, or I have to make this huge investment.
Yeah.
They're constantly being paid to do that.
Yes.
So I see this shift in terms of how people pay for technology in the corporate world, moving more towards how we do it in retail.
In retail, yeah.
Which is you put in your credit card details and you forget you're paying for this.
Exactly. And they slowly take it from
slowly,
you.
So what we're doing now, first of all, we're interested in partnerships, not really in cash cows.
Yeah.
Because we want them to use our technology. We want them to get comfortable with what can be done.
Yeah.
And this is completely new to them.
Yeah.
So how are we priced? I mean, the best price you can have is make sure you don't leave anything on the table and everybody feels happy.
Yeah.
If they have 10 francs on the table, then okay, I'll take that. Now, being VC funded company, that's what you're being funded for. That's why you're raising money for, to be able to do stuff for free or for in a way that actually allows customers to test, to prove, and to find the value.
Yeah.
What we're doing now is we're seeing, okay, let's do a small pilot, and this is how we work.
Mm-hmm.
We always do things in 3 phases.
Mm-hmm.
First
Again,
phase,
3.
Yeah,
Three.
I'll go back to 3. I like the number 3. Phase number 1, after we found this, we do a design thinking workshop. My background is in design thinking, and we say, okay, what's the best use case for you? We map that out. We do the as is, a to be process.
Yeah.
And we say, okay, what's the minimum, let's say minimum viable product, the minimum thing that we can build for you in order to come up with the KPIs to show the value of this.
Yeah.
So we assume that we'd be saving this much. We assume that, these are our assumptions, these are our hypotheses. And that pilot, that first phase, is in order to give us the numbers to justify that.
Yeah.
Now that we're doing more and more of this, we're seeing actually how much we're saving for them.
Yeah.
And the savings are enormous. Now, as we do this more and more, we realize, okay, should we charge 10 francs or 100 francs? Well, actually, if you're saving them 200 francs, well, 10 probably is okay. But if you're saving them 10,000, well, maybe we should charge them 500.
Yeah.
And that's where we're getting to. Now, I don't think we are aiming at all to become kind of this IBM pricing. That's not what we're going for. This because doesn't make sense, because we want to keep these things up to date. We want to keep on being their partners.
So you want to have some kind of a subscription?
We're going for an annual recurring revenue. That's our
the goal.
That's our target, an annual recurring revenue.
Yeah.
With several large known players who find value in what we're doing, and that shows, okay, we're on track.
Yeah.
How much they pay? Yes, of course, we need to cover our costs, and
of course,
some we'll make some investments ourselves in order to showcase things that we know we can achieve.
Yeah.
But we're not. What's the right price point? I don't know. This is the way we're going through to actually find that right price point.
Yeah. So it's very individual still for each company.
No, I mean, we do have a base cost for kind of the core infrastructure for, let's say, our smart treasury. There's a basic annual recurring revenue that we expect to make. The different use cases and how we adapt those to it, we price depending on the needs and depending on the customer.
Yeah.
And some customers say, I'll pay for the implementation, but I'd rather not. I think it depends on the customer. Some customers say, like, look, I have this much money. I can spend this. This is my budget this year. What can you do for me for that? I don't know what I'm going to have next year. It's probably not going to be this much. So I'd like to do that. Yeah. And others are like, I don't have any upfront investment. Yeah. But I'm happy to sign a 5-year deal with you guys. Yeah. So
it's very, very specific to the customer. Somehow you have a base.
Because and again, it's this goes back to the B2B side, which I'm telling you at the end of the day, it's a human, because you need to. Well, they'll pay you what they can pay you. If they can pay you in oranges, they'll pay you in oranges. If they can pay you in dollars, they'll pay you in dollars. But you need to see, and okay, do I want those oranges? Yeah, maybe I do. Yeah. And people won't pay you what they don't have.
No, obviously.
And every corporate department has or does not have it. Now, it'll get to a point where this becomes a standard, and sure, there'll be a standard pricing model. Yeah. But we need to find that. So, and we're doing that with the client. Yeah. See what's the basic. Now, again, these guys are used to paying a lot of money for IT systems from the past.
Which is good for you.
It's good for us, but it'll also change. I don't think that's sustainable anymore. Large companies don't have those huge IT, but it's these things are. The global economy is not allowing people to have that expenditure in things from the past. That's what you call the legacy systems.
Yeah, I've heard that. Work in insurance.
Yeah.
So, one thing I was thinking about was if, and you've experienced both sides, being a founder yourself at the beginning, and now, the title is manager, but I mean, it probably looks a lot like founding your own startup. But you're just a bit further ahead. What differences do you see between the two roles, or maybe what differences do you see in your own experience? What's different now, where you're not the founder of the company, but you're kind of the founder in the country or in this region? What's the difference?
I don't have to come up with all the answers myself, and that is it's really nice.
Yeah.
To be honest. Again, as a startup founder, you fake it till you make it. You keep on rolling.
What does that mean for someone who doesn't know that expression? Well, because it can seem like everything's fake that we make until we make some money.
Because you're constantly faced with questions to which you have no answer. You have no clue. So you make an executive decision and say, okay, we're doing that.
Yeah, option A.
Option A. Was option A right? Was there any actual data supporting option A? No. That's the main thing that students have a problem with when they face the real world. You know all the variables in school. They give you all the factors. In business school or in engineering school, etc., they'll give you everything you need in order to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Or the task is to go find it.
Yeah.
In the real world, you either don't have time to go find it, or that simply the answers don't exist, especially in the startup world. So you just need to, it's a gut feeling and go ahead.
Yeah.
Now, I've taught the entrepreneurship class at ETH, and I always start out by, there's 100 students in the class, and I tell them, like, okay, first thing, I haven't even introduced myself. Raise your hand if you like accounting. It's ETH, right? And everybody just looks around. Accounting? It's like, what class are we? And 5, 6, weird people in the crowd raise their hands, and everybody's just looking at them like, you're like accounting? And then I go like, okay, who in the crowd likes legal? Likes, reading about legal stuff or has any experience with legal? Again, everybody's looking around like, what classes? What are we talking about?
Yeah.
And maybe 1 or 2 people raise their hand. I'm like, well, I'm sorry to tell all the rest of you that if you don't like legal, you don't like accounting, you're very likely never going to make it as an entrepreneur. And they just
that's a tough start to a class.
And they just stare at me like, what? I was like, well, that's basically, as a founder, you end up spending more of your time dealing with accounting than probably anything else in the company. Period. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
And if you have no clue how a balance sheet works, and payroll and taxes, or you have someone that you trust, finding someone you trust to help you, but you're still only going to need to go over it.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
It's never going to work.
Yeah.
So this romantic view of, I'm starting a company because I invented the most wonderful microphone in the world. Well, good for you. And so now what?
Now what's going to happen?
Okay, here's $1 million. Go build a microphone. Okay, and so what do you do with $1 million? Yeah. I'm just going to hire a bunch of people. I'm like, yeah, and who's going to do their social charges and taxes? And we'll just hire someone. Do you know how quickly that's going to just drain in 2 seconds if you have no clue how much you're really paying people?
Yeah.
I can guarantee you most funded startups, if you ask the founder how much are you actually paying every employee, they don't know.
They don't know?
No. Nobody knows. Why? Because you get your social charges are paid distributed during the year, and you have one next year. The actual costs of your employee, not the salary that you're telling them you're paying them. That's the easy number.
That's
but the
easy
actual
number.
If you consider the taxes, the social charges, the this and the that, how much is it actually costing you to have that person sitting on that desk? I can guarantee you that 99% of startup founders with funding have no clue.
That's not a good thing, is it?
Well, no, it's terrible, but we've never been educated for that. We don't have, yes, there's accounting classes, but that's not really, when are we going to have a pay your taxes class? We should have that in high school.
I would have loved to have that. I hate that.
So now going back to, for myself here in Switzerland, well, yes, I had to start up the legal entity for Adjoint. I had to do kind of the groundwork of setting up a company.
Yeah.
And I have the experience of the accounting and the legal stuff that goes around it. So that's step one, and that looked very, very similar to starting my own company.
Yeah.
From scratch. The other thing that's not the same is, well, okay, I have funding from the main company.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about that myself, and I help with fundraising and I help with that, but it's not. I'm looking for clients, and I have the time and the focus to really just look for clients.
Yeah.
Which a lot of startups spend their entire time looking for money instead of clients, which is funny. I met a startup the other day that they're a pretty big startup. They spent the entire year just trying to close one round of funding, and they didn't do anything of their product. They didn't do anything with the actual business they're trying to develop in a year. Really? Losing a year because you're trying to finish the due diligence that some big Swiss company is asking you to fulfill.
That kills the startup.
No, now they got a ton of funding, so you're like, okay, great, but they're a year behind.
They're a year behind, yeah.
I don't think the investors really think about that. How much time you?
Yeah.
They'll keep on asking. Oh, I want to see, all your documentation, and I want you. So founder is just sitting there preparing due diligence documents, and rather than actually going around and selling what they're doing. So that's been the benefit for me here, that I don't have to raise capital.
Yeah.
I only did that once. I'll never do it again. The other startups I've had have been organic, and I had customers. And
why would you never do it again? It's very tough. I hear
tough, and I'm not sure it's the best use of your time. Again, the business depends on the business type. Again, sometimes you just can't do anything if you don't have venture funding.
Yeah.
And if you've never done it, I encourage people to actually try, because it always looks easier after it's been done by so many people. But it's you lose huge control over your vision.
Yeah.
And your vision is yours. Yeah. So that goes out the window. And number two, you're going to spend more time answering their questions then you're actually going to be trying to solve the customer's need that you identified, hopefully.
Yeah.
And if you're not, the board's or the investor's needs should be secondary, third, in terms of what it is you're spending most of your time with.
But it won't.
Does
that depend on the investor, or would you say 90%?
I would say that's a general statement. Of course, there's better investors, there's others. Yeah. I have it with the other company I had. We're productizing something, and we said, okay, we can take a loan, or we can pay this ourselves. Maybe we can find an investor. And I know a couple of VCs. So I emailed one of them and say, hey, do you want to, let's say, we're doing this. Just one email, I explained what we're doing, and they already knew. We'd already talked about this, actually. And they'd asked, like, oh, would you like to have investment? I was like, no, we're fine. Okay, maybe. Send an email. Well, and then the answer back was like, oh, this is super interesting. Could you send me your business plan, your pitch deck? And I'm like, I have a running business. I don't have nobody has time for this. I'm not gonna. And this is gonna take me 2-3 weeks of work to put this together. Yeah. So that you can just scan through it. Yeah. And then ask me more questions. I haven't.
And say we'll wait a bit, or
exactly. Well, we're not sure it's the right time, and so
it is.
I'm not entirely. That's there in that specific case. It's not because I have the options of doing something else. Yeah. So you need to be very clear. Are you solving a customer problem, or are you solving an investor problem? And if you're spending more of your time solving investor problems, you're probably not dealing with the right investors. Yeah.
So you would recommend really only go to investors if you need to. Like a big amount of money to get to a certain point where you can be.
Resort, yeah. And Switzerland is really good for the little money. There's more associations helping startups in Switzerland than there are startups.
I need to check those out.
Getting the first 20, 50, 100K, that's really, really easy in Switzerland. Yeah. Getting 500K, good luck with that.
It gets tougher when they...
It gets tougher. Yeah, and then you go and ask for 10 million and like, oh, no problem, here's a check.
It's weird, right?
So there's this, there's this...
there's this gap.
There's this huge gap. But also, if you look at it from the investor perspective, and I'm a business angel myself,
yeah,
you're giving 500 or 100K of your money, which is people who have, good amount of money, but they're not millionaires, but there was a giving 100K of their money to a group of people who don't know anything about accounting, don't know anything about running a company. They have a great idea, but they don't actually know how to run a business.
Yeah.
So that's a huge risk.
Yeah.
Which is why nobody wants to take it.
Yeah.
And despite all this helpful organization, this and that, there's not a, plug and play. Here's my idea, make it a.
Yeah.
There's still no way of dealing with back office stuff. There's no way of. It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
And that's where this huge risk comes from. That's why there's very few people who actually want to give you 500K.
Yeah. What's your you just mentioned you're a business angel.
Mm-hmm.
What's your experience as being a business angel?
Lost some, made some.
Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier, like know the business. Know what it takes to get it to the market, which is the implementation, and number 3, like great tech. And the things that I have invested in are things that I either knew very well what it was about, what was going to happen, or I know someone who I trust very well who knows what these people are doing.
Yeah.
So I've invested in a medtech startup in Germany, which is doing extremely well. And a very good friend of mine who has a PhD in this. Again, he knows, he's the CEO of a startup of medtech himself. He invested in them. He talked to me about it, and they needed some help with user experience and stuff that I know about. So that's how I got in there.
Yeah.
And I trust this guy when he said that what they're doing. I have no clue what it is they're doing or how they're doing. I don't understand anything about it.
Yeah, but it's enough to have someone you trust.
But if this guy tells me it's a solid technology, these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the other investors around, it's just, piggyback investing. It's like, okay, those guys have the due diligence to do. Here's my money. So, again, so you either know it yourself or you trust someone enough to follow their lead.
Yeah, because it's a lot of money and a lot of risk.
And it's also, it's fun, it's interesting, it's...
you get to know...
You get to know a lot of
interesting people and products and services.
It's good. I've been to venture capital events in Munich, in London, in Berlin, Silicon Valley, here in Zurich, and it's also just like being able to access those types of events and the types of people and how it's really, really different from one place to the other, and like the style and the attitude. It's fascinating. I think it's the academic in me likes that.
Yeah. I've heard about there's differences in investors. Just Switzerland and Germany is already
very
different. We had one startup on that had talked to both sides.
So in terms of difficulties for the differences here is, so I don't have to look for my own funding at the moment. That's clear. I have product or a set of products that I've worked with. But they're not. Let's say they're not my babies, but I can subscribe to that vision.
Yeah.
And I think that's another interesting part that you see a lot. Everybody wants to do their own thing. It's hard to find people to work together. And you see that especially in the startup world, where like, oh, but my vision or my thing or is better. And we're over fragmenting and we're losing opportunities. In this specific case, I could have gone out and done my own thing.
Yeah.
In the same space, and I would have probably done okay.
Yeah.
But these guys have a head start, and they have a lot of knowledge that because I don't have that business knowledge. I don't have that implementation knowledge.
Yeah.
I have other things that we complement each other.
Yeah.
So hey, if I can be part of a great team other than just doing it my own thing, and there's some parts where I like doing things the way I like doing them because I'm a founder. And founders have this character which is like it's my way or the highway, and I have to find myself sometimes. I'm like, okay, I'll express my opinion in the most respectful and nice way. And if it goes my way, good. If it doesn't, then I'm like, okay, well, I trust these people. and I may not agree with their course of action, but I still trust them, so it might work anyways.
Yeah.
And that's something we always have to. It's just team play.
Yeah.
You need to trust the people you're with. You might not agree, but you still trust that what they decided is probably okay too.
Yeah.
There's never just a one answer to everything, right?
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine, or I can see how that can be difficult for a founder type. But if you're a team player, then that works somehow. And if you trust the people, I mean, you work with them. You've seen they're really smart guys, and
you need to. It's a constant effort. It's not like, oh, I've figured out that I have to trust these people, so you're constantly making that effort.
Yeah.
Every week you're like, okay, I would have liked to do, this color orange versus yellow, and I'm like, okay, well they decided orange. I would have rather. Okay. Fine. It's a constant difference. They're like, hey, no, Alan, you don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
And again, as a founder, you're used to being the one that has all the answers because everybody comes to you and is like, so what do we do now? So it changes the power dynamics quite a lot. Yeah. And it's good.
It's good human exercise.
Because I'm learning.
You're learning.
I'm learning about a bunch of stuff that I didn't know about.
Yeah. Which is, I think, it's a main motivator, I feel, for all the founders that I've met. Like, I just met one yesterday. I think you know him, Alex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He said if you're not learning anything, then founders want to move towards where they can learn.
Yeah, we're like moths around the light bulb, literally. Exactly. Because it hurts. It's like, but I look so pretty.
Exactly. Let's jump to the 3 final questions.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is, what's something crazy you believe that nobody else around you believes?
So there's a couple of different things within the space of Adjoint. Most enterprise, and I'm going back to the B2B side, most of the people that are doing these manual operations, these things that we talk this job that really nobody wants to do, I get a lot of answers towards, well, number one is, okay, these people actually like their job.
Yeah.
And we're killing jobs.
Yeah.
And I don't really think that's the case.
Yeah.
And number 2 is that very few, within this space, very few people actually sit down with them and ask them, what do you do? What's your job?
Mm-hmm.
There's very little human-centeredness, very little design thinking in B2B. And that's, say, if I've had any success in doing what I'm doing before and doing now within this space, it's been because I went there and I sat with the accountant for the entire day and watched her do what she was doing, how she was doing it, why she was doing it. I actually got interested for her job.
Yeah.
Not just the 3 bullet points of her CV, but actually what she's doing.
Yeah.
And in this space, very few people actually think that's important. Like, oh, well, they'll just do whatever you tell them to do.
Yeah. Okay, that's...
And then that's just because, again, large corporate, huge pyramids. And my answer back is like, well, that might be the case, but if they're unhappy, then you're going to have, 5,000 unhappy people coming you with your complaints.
Yeah.
Let us design it properly for them from the start, and you don't... Okay, go talk to the accountant. But I really have this belief that this in the B2B side, we do not spend enough or any time engaging with that end user.
Yeah.
And now again, the counter side, as I mentioned earlier, but you're killing their jobs. And I've sat with these people, and no, they don't want to look how to reconcile these 68 cents that are lost in the account they can't figure out. And they don't want to do this work.
No.
Nobody wants to do this work.
Yeah.
He's like, but you're generating jobs. I'm like, well, there's jobs and there's jobs.
There are jobs.
And that's not a good job.
Yeah.
Yes, it pays the rent, but that's not great. And if they're unhappy, then
that shouldn't be the threshold, like the benchmark paying rent. I mean,
I really believe that.
Yeah.
Now, is it easy for me to say I'm not the one whose job is being optimized? Maybe.
Yeah.
But so I would go for, nobody realizes how important it is to actually sit down there and watch what they're doing and actually engage with them, empathize with their job. And number two, they're actually pretty happy to see these menial, repetitive, boring tasks be done automatically.
Yeah. I see.
And that's a constant debate that
you're having.
That we have. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If you could put one message on a billboard to get to millions or billions of people, what would that message be?
So in my business, I don't need millions or billions. I need the 10 right people.
Yeah.
Look, what you might say, like, oh, but you might find those 10 right people with your billboard. I don't think that the type of people I'm looking for will go for a billboard. It's a different type of discussion. So I would really push that billboard towards do what you like, do what you love. If you don't, go find something else to do. And again, in the space where I'm at, I've met so many people who hate their job.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really sad.
It is very, very sad.
So that's my, and I've said it in presentations, and I've said it in like I've done a lot of blockchain 101, and again I'm always asking, well, what about jobs? Like, if you do not like what you're doing, please, if you can't find a reason to wake up in the morning and say like, okay, cool, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Go do something else with your life. Because you're neither making yourself happy nor you're making anybody around you happy.
No, it's like a cancer. I mean, if you're not happy, then your family is gonna feel it and
everything. So why do you think this is important? Because we're looking at this automation, which is usually seen as, it's gonna destroy jobs. And we've had automation and improvements for hundreds of years, and so far, it's worked out. I think we really need to make sure that people understand that this is good for everybody, not just.
Yeah, and to back that up with a study that was made, I think 2017 by Gallup International. They do surveys all across the world, and they did one with the topic of the workplace, and they interviewed so many people, like thousands and thousands, and they found out that around 85% of the workforce is disengaged or even actively disengaged with their work and workplace. So they really don't enjoy being there. That's 85%. It's just 15% enjoying their job, which is
just crazy.
Why?
It's also very let's say idealistic maybe. If you would ask someone 100 years ago, do you like your job? It's like, what?
Yeah, I mean,
it pays their rent, puts food on the table, period.
Yeah.
But I do believe that there's always been people passionate about what they do. There's been shoemakers who loved doing shoes, and there was tailors who loved tailoring, and there was miners who were very passionate about the work.
Yeah.
I think we have had that. We think about the past as like, this time where everybody was just, striving to survive. I really do think that people through history have been passionate, and that passion has led to extraordinary results in their fields or in their areas and whatever they were doing. Yeah. I think we need to promote that. And especially in the richest time in history, we're in the point where we have so much wealth, so much. Yeah. We should strive for more of that.
We should strive for more than just putting bread on the
again, table. Very millennial thing to say, but hey, again, shoot for the stars and that.
Exactly.
If we could ever do that, it's now.
It's now.
Or we're moving towards that.
Yeah. It was funny. I was working with my partner with whom I'm doing the startup now, and we also have that mentality. Just have fun. We were laughing so much during daytime when we were working together, and then we were walking through the building of the insurance where we were working, and it was such a contrast. Like, we felt the heaviness and the seriousness, and it was just it made us feel not really sick, but it was so uncomfortable. So it's a strong contrast, but it's so important to enjoy. I mean, you work 8 10 hours per day or more.
Yeah. I got a friend who got fired because, well, didn't get fired. He was told by his manager that he was too happy, and that made his coworkers uncomfortable.
Seriously?
Yes.
Oh, wow. What?
It was back in the U.S., but his boss told him, like, hey, Barry, you're too cheerful, you're too happy. It's just making a lot of people uncomfortable. Could you tone it down?
Wow. Good job.
He left. He works in a startup now.
Yeah,
he's very happy. He's doing well. But
good for him.
But that was the point where he's like, okay, I tried this. It was good. It was.
Wow. What's the last book you read or a blog post or video you saw and that you would recommend to entrepreneurs?
I will. There's one book that and I mentioned first that I read this one by the founder of Basecamp. Basecamp. I'm Googling, by the way.
Yeah.
It's called It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work. Mm-hmm. That's the last book I read, which I thought was very interesting. And it says on the cover, 80-hour weeks, fully packed schedules, super busy, endless meetings, all-nighters, Sunday afternoon emails, unrealistic deadlines, constant interruptions, overflowing inbox, chats blown up, can't sleep, no time to think, stuck at the office. And it has a huge X on top of it and it says, it doesn't have to be crazy at work.
Oh, I like it.
I actually finished it. I rarely finish business books because they start out okay. And this is not necessarily... It doesn't have all the answers, but I thought it was very interesting. And a lot of the concepts, I've taken a lot of notes from that. So the authors are Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansson, who's actually the guy who invented Ruby on Rails, which is interesting.
Okay.
So that's one. Then there's one that I would really, really recommend, which is the first business book I ever finished, which is called Originals.
Oh, Adam Grant.
Yes, How Nonconformists Change the World.
Oh, I love this one.
That's a really, really good book with very, very clear kind of explanations and examples and a lot of different golden nuggets that you could use and that you should be aware of, I think, constantly.
Yeah.
That's
a very, very good book.
If you're in tech, if you're doing something with users, Hooked by Nir Eyal is also really good.
Very good book.
Nir and I met at Stanford while I was there.
You met the author?
Yeah. Gave a class together at Stanford once.
Nice.
Really cool guy, and he has a lot of background in marketing and psychology and different things. So that's how he came up with the model. Yeah. And it's amazing to me how many people that are trying to do an app, for example, or some web thing that have not
read that.
It's like, okay, just this is very, very basic.
It's so basic, but it makes so much sense.
It makes so much sense. Yeah. So if you can't translate whatever you're doing into that, then you're just doing it wrong. So rethink it from that. So I think that's so those would be my top 3 recommendations.
That's a lot of good books. I just know 2 of them, so I'm gonna check out It Doesn't Need to Be Crazy at Work.
That was the last I read. I thought it was. Again, I don't read that many business books. Yeah. To be honest. So.
But you read the good ones.
You tell me when you've read it.
All right, Alan. Thanks so much for your time.
You're more than welcome. I hope there was some interesting nuggets of information here.
I honestly, every time I have an interview, I learn so much, just from the stories that the guests tell. And today was even. Content-wise from blockchain, you explained to it that it was a blockchain for dummies. So that was very, very, very cool. Sure. Thanks for taking the time.
No, more than happy to do so. And good luck with all the startuppers.
Thanks.
Listening to this. I always tell them the one piece of advice is fall in love with the challenge, not the solution.
Yes.
So kind of that's
a tough
always
one though.
Yeah.
We're getting better at it, but we kind of fall into the trap into like, it would be nice to build this or to have this and this. Exactly. But it's a trap.
It's a challenge. And it all goes down to sitting down with your customers, understanding what the accountants do, understanding the price itself. If you love the challenge, you'll always be able to implement all these different changes and all these different aspects and be able to adapt and strive. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the key to moving forward.
Yeah. Love the problem, not the solution. That's a good one.
It's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was it. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Startup Stories. I really hope you got some value out of it. Make sure to check out the show notes with additional links to the books that were recommended during the episode at nerdentrepreneurs.com. And if you like our podcast, leave a review on iTunes. See you next Monday.